one of the other things I could see people fearing adopting intermittent fasting and having that narrowed eating window is their muscle mass. So for somebody that has listened to some of my other conversations and learned about, and it's everywhere out there on the internet and elsewhere, the importance of muscle mass, especially as we age, for somebody that is fearing that when they're eating within that window, what would you say to them?
Yeah, there's a few reasons why people get worried about muscle mass, but really it's really overblown, I think, because muscles grow or don't grow based on how much you use them, right? It'd be great if I could just eat and gain muscle. It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't work the opposite either. It's not like you stop eating and your muscles stop, growing, because your muscles respond to how much you're using them. And if you're using them a lot, like lifting weights, they get bigger. And if you're bedbound, that is, you're not even, supporting your weight against gravity, your muscles weaken very rapidly within, a day or two. You start losing muscle mass extremely quickly. So the whole idea is that what you eat and don't eat is a relatively small contributor to your muscle mass. It's not like your body says, oh, okay, well, I'm going to store energy in the form of glucose in the form of fat. And then when I need it, I'm going to burn muscle. It's like, we'd have to be idiots to do that. Our bodies are just not that stupid. So it's really all about, and part of the problem is that it's all these sort of people who like to measure their muscle mass and lean mass and so on. And what happens is that during fasting, and there was one study that showed this, they took people, they fasted them for 10 days, they measured their muscle mass, and sure enough, their muscle mass went down 30% or something scary like that. But when they actually tested muscle strength, it didn't go down, it went up. And it's like, well, how does that happen? And they're like, well, because what's happening is that a lot of the muscle glycogen is being burned off, right? Glycogen is a chain of sugars, and muscle glycogen is not related to the glucose that's in the blood. It's sort of segregated. So as you lose muscle glycogen, you lose muscle water. So then when you measure it with bioimpedance, what you see is a shrinking of muscle. But it's not. It's just the muscle glycogen. So I've had somebody who is super worried about it, for example. And it was the weird. So he did a fast. He checked his body, his before and after. And what he found supposedly was that his truncal muscles dropped by 10%. So in like a few days. It's like, okay, but he didn't feel any different. Didn't do any more or less exercising, lost, 10% of muscle mass. That's weird. But then when he started eating again and then he redid it, his muscle mass went up, 10%. It's like, so you think your muscle mass went up 10% by not exercising any more or less than you did before, right? How does that work, right? And it's just the difference in muscle water, muscle glycogen that probably explains it. It's the way we're measuring muscle mass and lean mass that is throwing off our thing. And then people, with a little bit of knowledge, they go, wow, it's causing muscle loss. It's like, that makes no sense whatsoever, right? If you think about it, we would have all died long time ago if we lose muscle mass during fasting, because when we're cavemen and cavewomen, there's many times during the winter that people don't have enough to eat. There are probably lots of times they go several days without eating. If every single time you do that, you lose muscle and gain fat, everybody would have lost all their muscle mass like by the time they're like 15 years old, right? They'd just be little blobs of fat running around the American plains, right? Or, the Kalahari Desert and stuff. Those people who routinely fast and feast because of, winter and summer, and if they catch game or don't, they should be little blobs of fat. All these native tribes and stuff that are, in the Amazon that are away from civilization, they should be little blobs of fat, but they're not. They're lean, they're muscular, they're well built, right? Because fasting doesn't really cause muscle loss.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
Insulin's pushing harder, it's pushing harder, it's pushing harder, but at some point it reaches its limit, and then no matter how hard insulin pushes, you can't shove any more glucose into that cell, and therefore that's when the glucose winds up in the blood.